This is a questionable reality production. Hello, I'm Xander Crowns, and this is AP Post History. Now let's get started. Today we'll be covering topic 3.2, the Great Fracture. So given the Samanide government, this year being 1143 PQS for reference, lacked newly elected officials and no mandate from the people to rule, a new government had to naturally rise, right? As we so often see in these particular situations. And well, of course. But this process was inaugurated by a period of, can you guess it? Of prolonged contemplating, which was actually a relatively peaceful time where intellectuals, military leaders, and common people formed discussion groups to discuss what should come next. It was kind of a refreshing break from the trends where often we see these periods of governmental collapse followed by great military violence. But that's not to say these discussions weren't punctuated by intense bouts of anarchy and riots here and there. But overall, the period of prolonged contemplating was relatively peaceful. However, all that talking and thinking bore nothing, and the period subsided by the end of the month. Thus, the direction of society would not be determined by intellectuals, but by strong men and the charismatic. And so began weekly Saturday purges, because it was uncouth to purge on any other day, which were conducted by whoever happened to lead some proficient number of weapon operators. While massive migration occurred as people caught up in the smallest rumor would flock to a given place for the chance of safety. This led to a lot of remote farmhouses and forest villages being overrun by refugee crises, while Chaos found new employment as the head of the Samnites, and saw to it to make sure that great destruction would take place at every possible opportunity. One of the most jarring images would be the complete and utter destruction of Sakaitis, as the city effectively consumed itself. The former capital was raked by violence, fire, looting, and fun, until only charred foundations would serve as an archaeological reminder for future generations. It would actually be quite a tourist destination in the future, but that's kind of against the whole mood of the tone. All in all, of the 34 million people alive at this time, 12 million would be lost in the transition away from the Samanites. Post-historians call these developments the beginning of the Great Fracture. However, with society fractured and all, something had to sprout from all this frenzy, right? Well, something did actually, and a lot of things did. But these societies were quite gimmicky and more of a callback to the dark millennia after the salmoning, if you remember that. So governments became smaller and localized, while adopting concepts only science fiction writers thought reasonable to organize a society by. Moreover, isolation increased, and really, the world entered into a dark age after the short-lived peak of the Samanites. However, post-historians and our good evil friend, the Collegiate Council, mark 3.5 societies as being broadly post-historically important and outliers from the trend of these small gimmicky governments, unless you are one of those people who'd like to learn about primarily unimportant information. And those societies are the Commonwealth of the Commons, which really is more of a non-government. You see, there was a subsect of people who actually quite liked the period of prolonged contemplating and the total absence of government. And the people of the commons worked to establish a stable society and then just let tacit codes do the rest. It's kind of like a prolonged period of contemplating, really. Everybody just went about their day-to-day lives with no desire for some large, abstract government body to worry about and whatnot. This society only really retains relevance because a bunch of mostly uninformed and romanticizing politicians and philosophers would argue for the reconstruction of the society while overlooking its many failures and faults, as we so sometimes do. The commons would only really last for about 70 years or so, until someone accidentally ran over someone else's cat and refused to pay for the medical treatments, which kind of broke the whole system of governance by tacit codes. Then there's our favorite, the Textdot Society, which had already more or less removed itself from the Samnites, but now it felt more pompous and superior for making such a good judgment call before anyone could possibly have the idea to do the same. This society, much like those abandoned farmhouses and forest villages, also swelled in population as it became a hub for refugees. Our next big important society developed around Chinookville, and they were called the "We Are Done with Salmon Stuff," or the Tawads people. And as you may have realized from the name, they were pronouncedly anti-salmon. In fact, they spent most of their governmental energy doing a great amount of cultural cleansing of any salmon reference of salmon in their society, because they were really just done with salmon. There is more to them, but we'll explore that later, or probably never, but such as such. And the Siaz people, finding their old oppressor not existing anymore, established their own new country. But because they were feeling a bit irrationally exuberant, named their country Bigger Texas. They followed their traditional model, but with less effectiveness. Post-historians actually have a strange dislike for the northern half of Bigger Texas, so that they don't talk about that other half at all. And that's why they are the 3.5 societies, in case you were wondering. And that's it. Topic 2 of Unit 3 is complete. If you want to find success in your post-history class and prolongly contemplate, consider subscribing and liking this video. My goal is to see each and every one of you get a 92 in your class and a 7 on the AP test in Quintober. Alright, Xander Crowns, checking out.